Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Alex, and today I wanted to talk about how we can make Big Brother better. Now, this season was wasn't great, let's be honest. I mean, sure, of course, there's no disputing the fact that Cody should have won the game. He played a great game. I'm not discrediting him. Love him or hate him, you have to admit that he played a great game. But it made the game very boring and predictable. Now, you can't give Cody all the credit. You know, the thing is that some of the people that we were rooting for got out early on in the game and they never won anything, not one competition. So, I mean, when you have one side of the house controlling the game and the other side of the house not winning any competitions, the other side's not going to have a chance at all. Sure, yeah, you can rely on your social game, but that will only get you so far. I mean, you have to win comps, generally speaking, to make it far in the game. Sure, there's exceptions here and there. Look at Enzo. Yeah, he won a couple comps, but for the most part, he sucked at competitions. Maybe part of that was his strategy. Maybe part of that he was throwing them. But honestly, I think for the most part, he was trying to win them, and he was just terrible at them all around the physical comps, the mental comps. And then, of course, you got the luck comps that anyone could win, that are strictly luck or almost strictly luck. But what I'm saying is, generally speaking, sure, of course, you can make it to the end of the game or far in the game without winning competitions. I get that part of it because the social game is a big part of it, of course. But that being said, when you're on the other side of the house and you're not within the majority alliance and you're not winning any comps, well, your social game could be a good social game, but you're not going to get very far, most likely. So, I got to give credit where credit's due. Cody deserved to win the game, and he played one of the greatest games in Big Brother history. There's no disputing that. I also got to give credit to the producers of the show to put on this show while we're going through a pandemic. I mean, this is one of the few shows that they could do, even though, because, the housecasts are already quarantining. So you just test them all, make sure they're all negative, then let them play the game. The problem is the hundreds of people that work on the show, probably even more. I'm sure there's hundreds of people. That's the trickier part. You got hundreds of people working on this show 24/7. So that's the trickier part. So I got to give Big Brother producers a lot of credit for actually putting on a season this season. Even though it was delayed, I don't care. We got a season. So I can't complain in that aspect. Got to give them a lot of credit. Got to give all the people who worked on the show a lot of credit. Now, with all that being said, all that out of the way, here's my criticisms of this season. Generally speaking, I'm all for an all-star season. I'm pumped for it. You have the best players or greatest players, or at least most of them are. And no discredit to David. I'm glad he got a second chance, but he should not have been on the season. But I get why he was, because they probably had a limited amount of people that they could choose from to put on the show, and he probably was a last minute decision, and maybe a couple other people that were supposed to be on the show weren't because they broke protocols, broke COVID-19 protocols, and they're like, yeah, we can't take the risk of having them on the show. So I get it. They didn't necessarily have a lot of options for a cast this season. I mean, they did the best they could. But, like I said, generally speaking, I'm pumped for an all-star season. And I'm not saying it can't work in the future, but I hope we don't have it again for a while, and we probably won't anyways. They're going to wait a while to have another all-star season. So, one of the things I don't like about an all-star season is the pregame alliances. The pregame alliances, it sucks. I mean, I get it, most of these people know each other prior to going on the show after playing a game at least one or two other times. And even if they don't know them very well, they probably cross paths at some point. And at the very least, we're acquaintances with everyone. There could have been a few people on the All-Star season that didn't really know some of the people very well. But the majority of people on the show probably knew knew each other, So, I mean, I don't know how you can prevent against a preseason alliance, but that's one aspect of an All-Star season I don't like because even though these people played the game previously, and you're like, okay, well, we got a lot of great players on this season and a lot of fan favorites. This could be interesting. This could have potential to be interesting. Obviously, that's the hope, but it wasn't the case this year. So, like I said, I get it. Like, I mean, how can you control that? You can't. You can't control people knowing each other ahead of time if you have an All-Star season. So that's one of the risks you take with an All-Star season. And maybe it can work again in the future with the right mix of people. And another thing is the other side of the house, if they won some comps, that could have potentially changed the trajectory of the game at least a little bit. At least it would have made things a little bit more interesting. Maybe it would have made Cody's path a little bit more challenging. You never know what would have happened for sure. If Janelle won a competition, Cody could have been out the door possibly. She said she was going to put him up. So you never know what would have happened. If a ball bounced a certain way, if a player just got one more question right, if they buzzed in a few seconds sooner, it's just amazing how like a little thing like that could potentially change the trajectory of the season, or at the very least, change things up at least a little bit, change the power up a little bit. So again, I don't know how you can prevent against preseason alliances. You can't when you have All-Star season. So that's what really pushed me to be like, okay, you know what? I'm more so for an all-new cast of people who never played a game before, of people who never even knew each other ahead of time. So you can't have any pre-game alliances or anything like that. So that's the only way to 100% prevent against pre-game alliances, but you can't do that in an All-Star season. Another thing I would change is the fact that when they do have eviction night, don't have Julie reveal the vote count. So what this would do, this would make the players more comfortable voting whatever way they want without anyone necessarily knowing who they voted for. I mean, sure, of course, like people could slip up and tell people who they voted for, or they could lie about it, and maybe some of the house guests could figure out who voted for who to some extent, but they would never know 100% who voted for who. So what I'm saying is this: I feel that it would be less likely to have votes where, oh, I'm voting with the house, quote unquote. I hate that. I absolutely hate it when people vote with the house. I get it. I understand it. If you genuinely think that's going to help you get further in the game, by all means do it. I'm not saying don't do it. But at the same time, it's boring. It's predictable. And also, it decreases the chances of people making big moves. And also, I want to see people play for themselves, not for the HOH. Okay, maybe once in a while someone could strike a deal with the HOH. I get that part of the game too. I understand. Be like, okay, I'll vote your way this week if you don't put me on the block like a couple weeks from now or something. Make deals. I get it. That's part of the game. But voting with the house, I think that's stupid overall. I get it in certain situations, but for the most part, it's boring, it's predictable, and, you're yelling at the TV and you're like, come on, play for yourself. Enough of this playing for the house crap. Like, do it for yourself, man. Come on. So, I think that will decrease the chances of people voting with the house. Will it still happen? Of course. But it will be less likely to happen. And when it does happen, most people won't even know that it did happen. So I feel that would automatically make things more interesting. And, in the past, once in a while, people would purposely throw a vote the other way just to try to mix things up a bit. And yes, sometimes once in a while that would work. it would cause paranoia once in a while. It will change things up a little bit once in a while, but overall, like it doesn't really change the game too much usually. So that's one big thing I would change is don't reveal the vote count. Obviously, you're not telling who voted for who, but don't reveal the vote count. Now, obviously, if there's a tie, then the HOH has to show their cards, and then, the HOH, in a sense, becomes penalized because then they have to show their cards and show where their loyalty lies, with regards to that specific vote. But hey, I'm willing to take that risk. I'd be willing to, I'd be okay with that possibility. So that's one thing. Those are two things I would change about Big Brother. Also, another thing I would change is no recruits. Cast people who love the game. Cast diehard fans, or at least casual fans of the show. I mean, if you don't cast a full cast of diehard fans, that's okay. But at least cast a few diehard fans and cast mainly at least casual fans to diehard fans. Don't cast recruits. I want people on the show who truly want to be on the game. I want who truly want to play the game. I want people on the show who know the game. I want people on the show who are willing to play their own game. So no recruits. I mean, I would love to see a show where you have a bunch of diehard fans on it, or at least half the cast diehard fans and then the other half casual fans. Casual fans, that's okay. At least have people on the show that know the game and know the legends that play the game. You don't necessarily have to be a diehard fan to know the legends to play the game. So that's another thing I would change. Now, this is a trickier issue I'm about to talk about, and I can't talk for a whole race. I'm not going to even try because I'm not qualified to really talk for a whole race, but I'm going to say a few things. The racism aspect of it. This transcends the show. I mean, this is a bigger issue than the show itself. The show happens to expose it and show it at times. Whether we like it or not, we have to acknowledge it. Do I believe everyone who's on the show is racist? No, not at all. But does it exist? Sure, it does to an extent. And yes, it's tough to watch. It's tough to see. I don't know how we can necessarily fix it. The only thing I could think of is maybe have a more diverse cast and have a stricter background check. I mean, I know that they probably already have extensive background checks, but maybe create an even more extensive background check with regards to racism. I don't know. There's no easy answer on that one. And also, I also feel that we should, more often than not, I'm not saying in every single situation, but more often than not, we should give people, at least initially, the benefit of the doubt. Keep in mind, these people have have cameras on them 24/7. They're bound to say something distasteful or slip up once in a while. I'm not condoning what they say by any means. I'm not condoning their mentality or attitude by any means, because some of the stuff some of these people could say could be absolutely horrible and disgusting. But if they have a slip up, one or two slip ups, I'm willing to try to forgive that person if they acknowledge it and they grow from it. Generally speaking, I'm for second chances for people in life, unless they really royally screwed up. Of course, excuse me. Wow. Of course, there are extenuating circumstances. If they severely screwed up, and there's no coming back from what they said, and there's no excusing it, then that's one thing, and even if it was just one slip up, it depends on the severity of the slip up, it depends on the situation, depends on the person, depends on the context. There's a lot of variables here, but there's certain things that someone could say that, okay, there's no excuse for that, and even if it's just one slip up, this is enough, and this is horrible and disgusting. But if someone said something distasteful, but maybe some of that what they said was taken out of context, or something like that, or they realized their screw up and they apologized right away and they grew from that situation. I'm willing to give them a second chance. So it's all situational. There's no easy answers with regards to that. I'd like to think the majority of the people on the show aren't racist, but there's always that possibility. And even if you have a more extensive background check, someone could lie about it or hide their racism. You never know. So that's a tricky issue. I don't know how you can necessarily fix that, but maybe, hopefully, they could figure out a way to make things better with regards to that issue. It's always going to be an issue to a degree, but let's just hope that one day we won't even have to worry about that aspect of it. So those are some things that I would change about Big Brother. One other idea I would have for the show, and I've been saying this for years, and I bet they will do it someday, have a show called Big Brother Second Chances. And what that is, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go into a little more detail. What that is people who got knocked out first in previous seasons and didn't even really get a chance to play the game, giving them a second chance, or early on. I mean, they don't necessarily have to be voted out first to be given a second chance. If they got voted out early on, give them another chance, especially if they were a memorable character and they had a lot of potential to be a really great character on the show, entertaining and a great player. They just got screwed over by some twist or something like that, and they never really got a chance to play. Oh, that brings me to my last point I was going to talk about. So I think, well, one more thing. I think that would be actually very interesting and cool to see is second chances. Sure, could there be potential for pre-game alliances in that case? Of course, but it is what it is. So, yeah, I think second chances would be cool to see. What was I going to say? Oh, my last point is this. Sometimes there could be too many twists. Twists could definitely have the potential to make things more interesting, of course. Sometimes twists flop. Sometimes on paper a twist sounds like a really great idea, but it just doesn't come to fruition, or the wrong player ends up gaining this power that didn't need the power, or a player got the power but they misused it and it just, or didn't use it at all, and then it just becomes a flop. So there's a lot of variables with it. So I'm not saying eliminate all twists. Some twists can definitely make things more exciting, and I get the fact that twists always will be a part of the game, but sometimes there could be too many twists that could take away from the gameplay too. So those are my ideas of how to make this game better and more exciting, more interesting, more entertaining. I'd like to hear your ideas and your thoughts. Let me know. Catch you later, and subscribe and follow me. Thanks for watching. See ya.